To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say a round of applause for Karamu's own Benita Jenkins. At this time, please join me in welcoming a pillar of the arts and cultural community, President and CEO of Karamu House, Mr. Tony Sias, to deliver the opening remarks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Karamu House, America's oldest Black producing theater, where in June we'll be celebrating 110 years. Our mission is to produce professional theater, provide arts education, and present community programs for all people while honoring the Black experience. Karamu is about inclusion and everyone is welcome. For the remainder of our current season, we will celebrate and educate around Black culture through 2 shows. In March, Karamu will produce the regional premiere of Weathering, a dramatic look at racial inequities around maternal health and infant mortality. To close the season, in April and May, Karamu will produce Choir Boy, which deals with the intersection of Black culture and LGBTQ+ issues inside a boys' prep school. And in the spring, we will announce our 2025-2026 season. That will include us returning to Playhouse Square for Black Nativity.
All right.
I want to take a moment to sincerely thank our esteemed public officials for your unwavering dedication and service to our community. Your leadership, commitment, and hard work make a real difference in the lives of so many, and we deeply appreciate all you do. At this time, I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Shontel Brown for her congressional address.
And thank you everyone at the Karamu House for welcoming us to this historic venue this evening. It is so fitting to be at this amazing theater as we mark the beginning of Black History Month. As the nation's oldest producing Black theater, the Karamu House has been a beacon of culture and community in Cleveland since its founding in 1915. In 2022, I was proud to vote for legislation that contributed $500,000 in federal funding towards the rehabilitation and revitalization of Karamu House. This funding was championed by our great former senator, who I affectionately refer to as my cousin, Sherrod Brown. And together with funding from Cleveland City Council, the Mandel Foundation, and many other partners, this project was made possible. Being here tonight in this beautifully restored theater is a testament to how strong federal-local partnerships can deliver for Northeast Ohio. When we work together across levels of government, across sectors, and across communities, we don't just preserve history, we create new opportunities. We invest in jobs, in culture, and in a future that reflects the best of our region. The story of Northeast Ohio is one of resilience and renewal, but we know that progress isn't permanent or guaranteed. There are new reactionary forces in Washington who want to pull back our progress, who seek to dismantle our democracy, and who believe that investments in communities like ours isn't a priority. But standing here tonight, in this space that has endured and thrived for over 100 years, we are reminded that when we stand together, when we choose to build up instead of tear down, we shape a generation worthy of Clevelanders to come. So I want to just sincerely thank all of you for being here and for being part of the vision. I also want to recognize my staff that are here from our district and Washington office, beginning with my leadership team. As you can see, my chief, Connor Fryer, Chief of Staff, Connor Fryer, Deputy Chief of Staff, District Director, Kimberly Edwards, Administrative Director, Jasmine Butler, you all seen her, Communications Director, Will McDonald, and Legislative Director, Julia Rossman. If you are, I think you're in the building, if you could give the crowd a wave, or they're around here somewhere, y'all. Please give them a round of applause. to acknowledge my DC team members, Arena Blake, Allison Barrows-Cabler, Chesney Cunningham, Lindsay Hanna, Amia Thompson, who's here, Leslie Aguilar, Elise Alenzando, and Luke McConville. Please give them a round of applause. And last, but certainly not least, my district team members. They're the ones who keep me on time and on schedule when I'm here in the city. Naomi Harden, Amber Joyner, Breon Pittman, Jared Sherman, Aaron Stever, Alexandria Johnson, and Amelia Cervenka. If you could give them a round of applause. Now, if you do not know these names and faces already, I would encourage you to connect with them later this evening. I'm telling you, they are the ones who really get the work done. And I just want to go off script and acknowledge my parents, for I would not be here without them. So right at the top, I want to highlight a few figures that speak to the work that our office has done over the last year in the district. We returned over $1.4 million back to constituents through casework, bringing the total since I took office to over $5.3 million. This is the bread and butter of our district team. We regularly help constituents who have issues with their tax returns, Social Security, veterans benefits, small business loans, and more. So I implore you, if you haven't done so, or please remind people and remember, if there's someone in your community who needs assistance with a federal agency or receiving federal benefits, we are here to help. I'm pleased to share since 2021, we have also secured over $37 million in community project funding for 28 worthwhile projects in Northeast Ohio. And last year alone, my team closed just under 900 cases and helped us to host or attend over 300 community meetings. I also want to thank the local elected officials who are here tonight. There are too many of y'all to recognize individually, but I would like to ask all of our local elected officials to please stand. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. As many of you know, I served on Warrensville Heights City Council and the County Council, so I know how important our local government partners are. I know the calls you receive, because I still get them too. I know the work that you do, and I know the values that we share. And the truth is, we all have the same bosses. That's y'all, the people of Northeast Ohio. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for your partnership. Thank you to the many nonprofit leaders and community leaders who are here as well. Many of you do the work that extends far beyond your title, and I know that it takes more than just government to make things go. That is one of the reasons we established and expanded the vision of my predecessor, Secretary Marcia Fudge's Youth Advisory Council, who I think you got a chance to hear them lead in the Pledge of Allegiance, at least a couple of them. The Youth Advisory Council members, past and present, are here tonight. Would you also stand and be recognized? Y'all, these students are the future leaders of Northeast Ohio, and they're actually leading right now. And I have been blown away over the last 2 years by these students. I love seeing their talent, their curiosity, and their concern for others. These are young people from every corner of the 11th district who care about our community and our future. I also like to introduce or take a moment to say thank you to a couple of advisory councils that I have. The Small Business, Interfaith Advisory, and Agriculture Advisory Council, who are here with us this evening. If you could also stand and be recognized. Y'all, it's impossible to represent 800,000 people without a network like this, without the leaders, without the partners who can help be my eyes and ears across the district. And what's so helpful about these folks, especially my advisors, is that they don't just want to give me feedback. They want to actually help make things better. So thanks again to all of you. So now, the moment that brought us here. If we can go to the main slide. Since last November, it has been clear to me that we would need to come together for a meeting like this. Because the plain truth is, Trump's White House will be the biggest challenge to working people in Northeast Ohio since the Great Recession. The storm is headed our way, and as the last week has shown, it is going to be a big one. So if you aren't ready, it's time to get ready. Here's what I also know. The people in this room are not going anywhere, and neither am I. Now, I respect the results of the last election, but I also respect the people of this district. While the White House has changed, the needs have not. There are still kids in on the southeast side of Cleveland who need food on the table. There are still moms and dads on the west side that are worried about paying their bills. There are still aunties and uncles in Warrensville Heights trying to start a business. There are still grandmothers and grandfathers in Euclid who are worried about their medical bills. There are still families in Clark Fulton worried about mass deportation. The bottom line is this: here in Northeast Ohio, we do not have the luxury of giving in to despair or defeat. I believe we have a responsibility to fight for this community, to stand up for the rights and dignity of the people here and defend the progress that we have made. And that's right, I said progress. And before I go any further, I would be remiss if I did not thank President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank them for getting our country out of the hospitals and back to work and back to building again. And I also want to set the record straight this evening. During Donald Trump's inauguration, he said America was in decline and disrepair. Let's address what really happened, y'all. January 2021, the month President Biden took office, was the deadliest month of the pandemic. That month, 95,000 Americans died from COVID, a greater number than died in the entire Vietnam War. I want to remind folks, it was President Biden who turned things around. The White House gave local communities the resources to recover, to rebuild, and to reopen. And they did it with the help of Democrats in Congress. We built the strongest economy in the world. An economy, thank you. An economy that created over 16 million new jobs and saw 21 new businesses formed. Is that decline and disrepair? And thanks to the work of the Biden-Harris administration and Democrats in Congress, it wasn't just the wealthy and the well-connected that prospered. Under President Biden, the Black unemployment rate hit a record low last year. And according to the data, we're not just working, y'all. We are owning and we're hiring because Black business ownership is growing at the fastest rate in 30 years. Is that decline and disrepair? Now, I gotta admit, a Black business boom might feel like a crisis to billionaires like Elon Musk, but it sure doesn't feel like one to me. As you can see, I've seen this up close. The last 2 years, my office has hosted a small business expo, and the turnout has been massive. As a recovering entrepreneur, a small business owner myself, it has been so inspirational to connect people with lenders and help aspiring entrepreneurs learn more about marketing, business plans, and more. And this year, we're going to hold our largest small business expo yet. Because no matter who is in the White House, we are not going anywhere. President Biden Biden and Democrats in Congress brought fairness to our lending and grant programs and made historic investments in our community. On my second day in office, I proudly voted for the bipartisan infrastructure law, the largest investment in our infrastructure since the 1950s. To date, over $11 billion in federal funding has come to Ohio to fund over 400 infrastructure projects in our state, but we didn't do it alone. We worked hand in hand with many of the local leaders in the audiences, businesses, and communities, many of the very people right here in this room tonight, to target priority projects. That includes funding for the Cleveland Hopkins Airport, funding for repairs of Interstates 271 and 480, we know we need it, funding for brownfield cleanups in East Cleveland, funding to transform downtown Cleveland with the North Coast Connector. So I would venture to say, rebuilding Northeast Ohio is not decline and disrepair. And when a lot of people thought we were done, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act, two major pieces of legislation to lower costs and prepare our country for the future. Thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, over $250 million in federal funding has been awarded to projects in our district. Projects to reduce indoor pollution, to help our neighbors insulate their homes, and to support the deployment of clean energy infrastructure in our district. Y'all can applaud for that. And with the CHIPS and Science Act, Central Ohio is poised to become one of the leading hubs for semiconductor manufacturing in the United States. Additionally, we lowered the cost of health care for millions of Americans. The Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, not to be confused with y'all retirement plans, capped the insulin price at $35 a month for people on Medicare, benefiting approximately 1,400 seniors in our district. You can go ahead. It also capped out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 per year for people on Medicare. This provision went into effect this month, lowering costs for approximately 53,000 seniors in OH11 alone. And because of the IRA, Medicare is now able to negotiate lower drug prices. Now, I gotta admit, that is decline and disrepair for the drug companies, but not for America.
All right now.
So we also passed the PACT Act, providing long overdue coverage to veterans who were exposed to toxic chemicals. In the 11th district alone, over 1,600 claims have been awarded to local veterans thanks to the PACT Act. And one of the things I'm most proud of that doesn't get nearly enough attention is the fact that Democrats passed major gun safety legislation, the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This legislation strengthened background checks for people under 21, like the gunmen at Parkland, Uvalde, and Buffalo, requiring checks that include juvenile criminal history records and mental health records. And it prohibited all those convicted of domestic violence from purchasing or possessing a firearm. Previously, go ahead, thank you. Previously, only those domestic abusers who were married were barred under federal law. So that meant there were millions of abusive boyfriends and ex-boyfriends not covered by the law, with tragic consequences. The Bipartisan Safer Communities Act put a stop to that. And to date, over $7 million in funding for public safety and mental health programs has been delivered to local schools and cities thanks to this legislation. Lastly, in President Biden's final days in office, he signed the Social Security Fairness Act, increasing benefits former public school teachers, firefighters, police officers, and others have been getting a raw deal. If they had other jobs, even though they paid into Social Security, their benefits were reduced. For decades, instead of supporting public servants, we punished them. But President Biden and Democrats in Congress made sure that we did right by workers. And these are all the investments that we talk about from the bottom up and the middle out. And they were investments and progress that included Black and brown people rather than shutting us out. So I'm not going to let someone tell me that lower drug prices, better benefits, and real investment in our community is a sign of decline. So what's really going on? I'm glad you asked. Last fall, just a few weeks before the election, I joined crews working with Cleveland Water to remove lead pipes on the west side. And this work was made possible with the financing from the bipartisan infrastructure law. They were going house by house, street by street. It's not the most glamorous or sexy project, but it's absolutely essential. And y'all, there were Trump flags all over the street we were on. And I think that says so much about the state of the country the last few years, right? But it also says a lot about Joe Biden. He would have never thought for 1 minute about pulling the plug on those repairs due to politics. We cannot say the same about the current president. But too many people didn't know that work was being done right on their street, in their own house, because of the legislation that we passed. In fact, now their guy and his billionaire buddies are saying that projects like that are just wasteful. That is why I started doing these check presentation photos across the district. And why I told my team, we've got to be on social media more. We've got to change the way we communicate. That's why I invited all of you here this evening, because I want you to do the same. I want people to know who is working for them and who's not. And I also put this challenge to the people in the room. Look, we all know the lingo: SNAP, ACA, WIC, TANF, block grants, appropriations. We know all of it. But our constituents, our friends, our neighbors, that's not their world. So when you're talking to people, when you're helping someone sign up for nutrition benefits or health care or apply for a housing voucher, please let them know who fought for these programs, and let them know who's trying to cut them out right now as we speak. That brings us to the challenge that we face. Project 2025 is here. This guy is on a mission, y'all. Do y'all see? This is his official portrait. And he is not smiling. He is sending a message. Trump and his allies are trying to reshape the country and remove all checks and balances. They pardoned the people that attacked the Capitol on January 6th. They've repealed a Biden administration program to give seniors access to $2 co-pays for generic drugs. They've repealed federal policies supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion, federal hiring, and contracting for minorities and women. They fired inspector generals, the watchdog tasked with actually rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. They've bullied our federal workers relentlessly and tried to buy them out. And just a few days ago, they botched an attempt to illegally freeze essentially all federal grants and funding streams. And here is where it's all going. The number one priority for President Trump and extreme MAGA Republican leadership is to pass massive new tax cuts for the wealthy and big corporations. So what happens when you cut taxes for the people with all the money? The government has less money to spend. Now here's their problem. Bear with me as I give you a little Civics 101. They have to pass this thing using what's called a budget reconciliation. And under the Senate rules, any permanent policies and reconciliation bills have to be paid for dollar for dollar. So just like when a household has less money coming in, they cut spending. That's what the government will have to do. For every dollar they give back to Elon Musk as a tax cut, they've got to pay for it by cutting spending. Now, do you think Donald Trump wants a little tax cut or a big one? That means the greedier they get on one end, the more the people in Northeast Ohio are going to suffer on the other. Do you see why we should be very worried? They're going to look at every single part of the federal budget that deals with seniors, health care, education, and social services. In order to make their math work, they have to go very big. So here's what I'm most worried about. Fewer people on Medicaid with fewer coverage. Fewer people on Affordable Care Act plans with smaller coverage. Fewer people on SNAP with smaller payments. And on top of that, massive federal divestment in Northeast Ohio. Because they want to freeze, repeal, and redirect as much of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act as they can. And here's what that means for us. Over 290,000 people in this district alone are on Medicaid. Over 160,000 people in the district are on SNAP. Over 41,000 people are on the Affordable Care Act plan. And 21% of our district is in poverty. That's 1 in 5, y'all. These are also the folks that need Head Start. They need federal funding for schools. They need heating assistance. And just when those folks are starting to see a little progress, Donald Trump sees decline. That's what this is all about. So are we going to let the new White House and their allies bully working families in Cleveland? No! Thank you. President Trump is going to try to turn the economy upside down, undermine civil rights, immigrants' rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, workers' rights, and more. But this is how we are going to respond. Number one, I am going to use every platform I have to speak up and speak out for the people of Northeast Ohio because I truly believe the majority of people wouldn't want this agenda if they knew about it. The president has a bully pulpit, but we will have a megaphone. We're going to advance a positive legislative agenda to expand opportunity. We're going to show people there's an alternative. So we should empower working families and ensure that everyone has the chance to build a better future. Last Congress, I introduced the You Fight Act to improve women's health and close the racial health gap. I introduced the Expanding Healthcare Workforce Act to expand the Lincoln West model for work-based learning programs for high school students nationwide. And we filed the Diverse Cybersecurity Workforce Act to help more women and minorities get into the well-paying cybersecurity field. Right now, y'all, thank you. There are 400,000 unfilled cybersecurity jobs in America. So let's get recruiters at HBCUs and diverse campuses talking about these jobs. Because the truth of the matter is, we don't have enough white men to fill them all. And we are going to file those bills again. We are also going to fight these executive orders. I'm introducing legislation to enshrine the Equal Opportunity Executive Order that Trump rescinded. Now this dates back to 1965, y'all, but we need to get it into federal law. And last week, I led a letter with 51 colleagues to Health and Human Services demanding answers on Trump's rollback of the President Biden's programs of limiting drug prices, including offering seniors $2 copays. So I will also join my colleagues in the Democratic caucus to build a more just America, supporting legislation to lower the cost of housing, healthcare, gas, and groceries, to raise Social Security benefits across the board, to restore reproductive rights, to raise the federal minimum wage and guarantee equal pay for equal work, and to expand protections for workers who want to exercise their right to join a union. And I'll tell you this, if Republicans bring forward a bill that's good for America, I'll be happy to work with them. And number 3, we're going to win the ground game. Donald Trump is going to post, he's going to talk, he's going to make impossible promises, he's going to say demeaning and insulting things. It's wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. We know this, we've seen it, it's going to keep happening. But we are going to fight for every constituent, every neighborhood, every school, every city in this district. Now, I talked about casework numbers at the top. If that's where we have to fight, then that's where we'll fight. By doing everything we can to get people enrolled in the programs that they need. That is the ground game. I talked about grants. We are fighting back against the illegal federal grant freeze. In the meantime, let's keep applying, let's keep bringing in new partners, and let's keep fighting to bring back these resources. I also talked about policy. We're going to oppose any and every policy that hurts our neighbors. Bill by bill, amendment by amendment, rest assured I am going to be there, and I'm going to use my perch on the very entertaining, sometimes, Oversight Committee to call out the president's political attack on federal workers. I'm going to use my position as the second highest ranking Democrat on the Agriculture Committee to speak up and speak out on cuts to nutrition programs. And I'm going to take, and I am going to take to the floor when Republicans try to rip the American people off to pad the pockets of the wealthy, well-off, and well-connected. I am going to stand with my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus and fight Donald Trump's rollback of civil rights. I'm going to be there for the people who cannot be, but I also need you to be there with me. You know my number. Call us, text us, work with us. Help us call out what is needed to be called out. Help us to find solutions. Help us to find alternatives. Help us let people know that they have not been left behind. Because I refuse to slip into despair, dejection, and desperation. Because most of you know, we have been here before. And as Dr. King told us, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to make sure we also honor Black History Month this evening, including highlighting the 100th birthday of Congressman Louis Stokes. I want to remind you that Louis Stokes was elected in 1968, the year we lost Dr. King, and the year America elected Richard Nixon. We have faced challenges before, y'all. Lou Stokes did not give up. He got to work. He didn't surrender to the so-called silent majority. Congressman Stokes and Shirley Chisholm and other founders of the Congressional Black Caucus demanded that Richard Nixon hear from them. And he built that legacy that carried on to Stephanie Tubbs Jones and Marcia Fudge. That's the standard I hold myself and my office to. Because we face an unprecedented moment. The forces and moment feel familiar, but we face a new reality. As Abraham Lincoln said in 1862 in his message to Congress, the occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and humbled to represent you, and I am ready to rise to the occasion as we act and think anew together. Let's fight for Northeast Ohio. Let's do this together. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for those powerful remarks. As you all know, you've all registered for this event. We got a slew of questions that came through, and we found some questions that spoke to the heart of what many of you were asking. I'm going to ask at this time if Justin McCulley could find his way to a microphone. There's a microphone on both sides of the audience. Justin?
Here I am.
Very good. If you could start us off for the first question.
Hi, Congresswoman. Thank you very much. I'm so honored to have you represent us in Congress. It's been a rough week for grant writers, and I'm curious, do you have a take on what will happen with community project funding and earmarks in the 2025 budget?
Well, first, I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank you for the question. So government funding runs out March 14th. That was a continuing resolution that was passed at the end of the year to keep our government open in short term. And the short answer is, I can't say for certain what is going to happen with government funding in March. My staff and I have received some assurances that community project funds that were funded at the subcommittee level will be funded in whatever appropriations bill we end up passing in March. And I do hope that we can pass something in March. But the reality of the moment is a lot can change between now and then. So thank you for the question.
Our next question before we go to our honorees is from Sam Dickerson. Sam, if you could find your way to the microphone.
Good evening, Congresswoman Brown. I couldn't help but notice up on your screen you had that there was 160,000 people receiving SNAP benefits. And I just seen in an article and on the news how SNAP benefit people are going to be targeted. What are you willing to do to protect these people from this target on their back?
So the goal as the second highest ranking member on the Agriculture Committee is to get a farm bill passed. That is the highest priority in the order of the day. We want to make sure that when we pass that legislation, historically that has been a bipartisan measure, a legislation that has worked with Democrats and Republicans to make sure that we are both getting the resources that our community needs, meaning farmers get breaks for them, and our communities that are that rely on SNAP get their benefits. So I'm just going to have to continue to fight for that. We have been unable to pass a farm bill, and the reality is when you have Republicans that hold the House, the Senate, and the administration, this is going to be up to them. But the encouragement I want to leave you all with is the margins are incredibly slim. I jokingly say a banana peel, a delayed flight, a bad cold can shift the numbers in Congress because there's a 2-person margin. So things can change on any given day in the House. But that also gives us leverage to negotiate because on both sides of the aisle, there are people who will inevitably need to make decisions that might be reflective of their district, that might not be encompassing of the body as a whole. So we will leverage those margins, those slim margins, to make sure that we are getting the resources back to those people who are in need at the end of the day.
At this time, we'll move forward with our honoring of Black History Month. If we could ask the family of the Honorable Louis Stokes to join the Congresswoman on stage, please. If you could give them a round of applause. at this time. We will take the time to honor the remarkable legacy of the late Congressman Louis Stokes. February 23rd would have marked his 100th birthday. He was a trailblazer, the first Black member of Congress from Ohio, a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and a steadfast champion for the underserved. Congresswoman Brown recently took to the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives to commemorate his incredible contributions, ensuring that his legacy is recognized at the highest levels of government. At this time, it is our distinguished honor to invite his family to the stage and join them in the welcoming, in honoring the great Louis Stokes. In his honor, we present his family a congressional record, and as we continue this evening of recognition, we'll take the honor to take some photos, and as soon as we are done, we're going to have one more recognition. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask the daughters of a true trailblazer, Sergeant Alma Gladys Minter, to join the Congresswoman on stage. A late resident of Northeast Ohio, Sergeant Minter served as a tech sergeant in the 6th AAA Central Postal Directorate. Congresswoman Brown recently spoke on the House floor to recognize the incredible contribution Sergeant Minter made to her fellow soldiers and that they made to our country. Their dedication ensured that vital mail and morale-boosting correspondence reached American troops stationed abroad. In addition to the Congressional Gold Medal that will be minted in the future, Sergeant Minter was awarded numerous honors, including the Women's Army Corps Service Medal, the European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Meritorious Unit Commendation, and the Honorable Service Lapel Button. All of which we found out because Congresswoman Brown and her team took the initiative to look into this amazing honor for Ms. Alma G. Minter. At this time, please join us again as we'll take their photos and recognizing and honoring the legacy of Sergeant Alma G. Minter. We intend to continue to network tonight. We're going to get some more photos, and we thank each and every one of you for being here and part of this significant evening. We appreciate your engagement and your questions. We ask that you continue to stay engaged and join us in celebrating this moment and continue the work to uplift our district. Thank you, and God bless.